You once knew someone like this, a person who gave their heart to every room they entered, who smiled through the storms they didn't cause, who carried burdens so heavy they forgot which ones were theirs. Over time, the light dimmed. It didn't happen all at once. It happened in silences, in invisible exchanges, in crowded rooms where the air turned dense with emotions that weren't theirs. They became a magnet for sorrow, a sponge for suffering. Every interaction felt like an extraction. Every encounter left a residue, yet they stayed. Why? Because empathy told them that leaving meant abandoning someone in need. They had learned, long ago, that love meant tuning in so deeply it hurt. They had been taught that survival meant scanning every emotional frequency in the room, that safety came from reading others before being seen themselves, and so they didn't leave. They didn't retreat, they absorbed, until their own energy was no longer recognizable, and though their intuition screamed for space, their conditioning whispered back, "Don't make it about you." But what if it was supposed to be about you? What if the very sensitivity that wore you down was actually your greatest gift, just misused, misdirected, and misunderstood? Before another light flickers out, let's uncover the truth behind this empathic ability and how it can transform from a silent curse into a magnetic superpower. There's a way not to end up like the one who was lost in the waves, and it begins with one realization. Empathy often begins as a silent adaptation. In homes where emotional chaos was the norm, where moods swung unpredictably and love felt conditional, sensitivity became your compass. You learned to read micro-expressions like road signs, to sense the undercurrent of tension before a word was spoken. This wasn't just emotional awareness, it was survival. The nervous system calibrated itself to anticipate danger, and in doing so, it became exquisitely attuned to the emotional frequencies of others. Over time, this vigilance turned into identity. Empathy became who you were, not just what you did. What's rarely understood is that this form of empathy is less about connection and more about control. Control over your environment to feel safe. It's the internalized belief that if you can feel what others feel, predict their reactions, or soothe their discomfort, you might finally secure peace. But peace earned through constant tuning is never real peace, it's performance, and the cost is steep. Over-identifying with others' emotions creates confusion. Where do you end? Where do they begin? Without a strong sense of self, the world becomes overwhelming, and every interaction carries the potential for energetic entanglement. Rewriting this survival blueprint means acknowledging that hyper-empathy is not your fault, it was your armor. But armor worn too long becomes a cage. You were never meant to live in a state of constant attunement. You were meant to feel deeply, yes, but from a place of grounded presence, not reactive self-forgetting. The shift begins by recognizing that you no longer need to absorb to belong. You no longer need to abandon yourself to feel safe. The body can learn a new language, one where calm comes from within, and empathy is a gift, not a trap. Energy, in its raw form, is boundless, capable of flowing into any space, adapting to any shape. Empaths by nature reflect this same quality. They stretch, bend, and mold themselves to the needs around them, often without realizing they've lost the shape of their own identity in the process. This openness, while beautiful, comes at a cost when not tempered with structure. Boundaries are not barriers to love or connection. They are the sacred lines that define where self begins and others end. Without this container, energy disperses, magnetism weakens, and what once seemed like compassion turns into depletion. Presence requires edges. A clear frame strengthens your energy, turning it from something leaky and reactive into something solid and intentional. When you hold your frame, you remain in your own energy field. You stop leaking attention into others' problems or emotional weather. People may still feel safe around you, but for a different reason. It's no longer because you absorb their pain, but because your groundedness invites them to relax into their own. Boundaries, then, become invitations to clarity rather than walls of separation. They allow your energy to move outward from a center of wholeness, rather than frantically inward in response to chaos. Just as a candle burns brighter when protected from the wind, your light grows more radiant when enclosed in the safety of your own frame. That flame is still generous, it still offers warmth, but no longer at the cost of being extinguished. In your grounded presence, you begin to radiate rather than absorb. You lead instead of reacting. Others may feel drawn to you, but they will no longer siphon from you. The difference lies in how clearly you've claimed your own space in the world and how confidently you now stand within it. Two opposing poles often magnetize toward each other without even knowing why. On one end, the empath, the one who feels too much, gives too much, and quietly loses themselves in the process. On the other, the narcissist, the one who demands attention, consumes energy, and rarely gives anything in return. They seem like opposites, but in truth, they are caught in a silent choreography. One seeks validation through giving, the other through taking, and in the tension between the two, a familiar dance begins, a loop that feels like connection, but drains the soul. This dynamic isn't random. It's rooted in subconscious patterns shaped early in life. Empaths often grew up in environments where love was unpredictable, and tuning into others became a tool for emotional survival. Narcissists, by contrast, may have learned to protect themselves by constructing a persona of self-importance, often masking deep insecurity. When they meet, the empath sees someone to understand or fix. The narcissist sees someone who will reflect back their illusion. One dissolves, the other dominates, and yet beneath the surface both are seeking the same thing, a stable sense of self. True healing begins when the empath stops performing the role of the emotional caretaker. There is wisdom to be drawn from the narcissist's unshakable sense of entitlement, not to adopt their behavior, but to reclaim a rightful sense of self-prioritization. Learning to say, "I come first," is not arrogance, it's energetic hygiene. The empath who learns to value their own needs and protect their own energy stops attracting relationships based on imbalance. They exit the dance, step off the stage and begin composing their own rhythm, one of grounded self-awareness, not compulsive self-sacrifice. Presence is not passive, it's the most active state of being, and it begins when attention returns home. Through a specific form of meditation, one that emphasizes subject-object distinction, you reclaim your sovereignty. This isn't about zoning out or escaping, it's about grounding in your essence. The practice is deceptively simple. Gaze softly at a candle flame. As breath flows in, feel the space between you and the flame. Let your awareness anchor in your body, your chest, your hands, your feet. On the out-breath, soften. Expand your awareness, but keep your energetic center firm. Over time, this teaches your nervous system the felt sense of me, separate yet connected. Empaths often float in the energy of others because they've never been taught how to reside in themselves. But this practice reverses the dynamic. You no longer chase energy to feel okay. You become the still point around which chaos orbits, untouched. You observe but you do not absorb. You witness but you do not lose yourself. When your energy returns home, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to respond differently. Strangers linger a moment longer. Conversations feel lighter. Encounters lose their emotional stickiness. You begin to attract not because you're reaching, but because you're rooted. Presence is the language of energy. When fully embodied, your frequency communicates before words do. You walk into a room and instead of scanning others, your energy draws them toward you. There's no need to chase. In fact, the more you let go of needing to be understood, the more you're seen for who you truly are. Empathy, in its mature form, is not about becoming everyone's emotional support. It's about being a lighthouse, standing firm, glowing brightly, guiding others not by rescue, but by example. A lighthouse never moves toward the ship, it simply shines. Every empath must eventually choose: remain a sponge for the world's pain, or become a sovereign being who feels deeply without losing themselves. This choice is not made once, it's made daily, in small moments of awareness. Saying no when your body contracts, saying yes when your spirit expands. Negative energy no longer needs to be feared. It's no longer a threat when it's no longer mistaken as your own. The clearer you become in your boundaries, the more your intuition sharpens. Energy flows to clarity. Confusion attracts chaos. But presence draws peace. You are not here to carry everyone's weight. You are here to hold your center so fully that others remember how to hold theirs. With every breath, with every boundary, with every return to your own energy, you teach the world how to treat you, not by force, but by frequency. Never again do you need to absorb what was never yours. The era of the overburdened empath is ending. A new way begins now, anchored, awake, and untouchably radiant.